Annual reunion, Ransom, Missouri, 2009. And again, as we tend to do these with a question and answer, and you've already got some of your answers written down, so we'll just jump right into it. Now, before you joined the Army, sir, what did you do for a living?
I was a farmer, farm boy. And my number was coming up, so I enlisted. Thought I'd get a better chance to get into what I wanted to get into. But they put me in the Army, sent me to Fort Knox, where I took my basic training. And he sent me overseas. I crossed over the North Atlantic on the Lewis Pasteur with 5,000 other troops. And it was a round bottom tub in that North Atlantic. She was pretty wild. And I don't think there was a dry spot in the ship going over. I was lucky I got gun duty on the top deck along with guard duty. So I got to sleep in a hammock. I never really got sick, but I never really had an appetite either. And we got over outside of England, Liverpool, and we had to lay out in the ocean for a couple of days for the tide to come in so the ship would come in. They put me on a train with my fellow buddies. I went across England on one of them little choo-choo trains. Then went across the channel on a open boat. I suppose it was an LST or some kind of a transport ship. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the smell when I landed in Le Havre. And of course we had our duffel bags and had to carry all this stuff to trucks and load up, and then they hauled us off to our respective units, which I ended up with 43rd Tank Battalion. And I'll never forget, there was 8 of us standing around the table, and I thought I'd been through armored school, and I went to Detroit and Continental Engine Works, and I had some training up there on the old Continental engine. And I thought I was well schooled, I'd be a rear echelon soldier. Second time around the table, the company commander looked at me and he says, "You can fix them, you can drive them." So I ended up a driver. And my first impression of the war was I was setting up in this tank with my head out of the hatch and following another tank, and the first thing I seen was a dead German soldier. Rigor mortis had set in and he was purple, and you'd never see this in civilian life, and it shook me up. It reminded me right then and there where I was and what could happen to me. And I guess that's part of being a soldier. I guess the most memorable battle I was in Colmar. And I was designated, my tank and crew were designated as litter bearers, and we carried wounded on the back of the tank in litters, and those that could set up, they'd let their legs around your neck, and you'd kind of hang on to them and drive the tank to and get them up out of there. We had a big Red Cross flag sticking on the top of our tank. I don't know why the Germans didn't shoot at us, but they didn't. And that was about the worst part of action, as far as I was concerned. In the middle of the night, hauling these fellows out of there, and some of them were so sick with battle fatigue that they couldn't talk, couldn't vomit, they couldn't do anything. I often wondered what happened to a lot of these fellows. And I failed to say that my company commander was Captain Ivan D. Woods from West Virginia. I had a lot of respect for this man. He wouldn't have us do anything that he wouldn't do. Some of the fellows that I remember Bob Quayle, who I went to school with when I was younger. My tank commander was Wiggins. and I got some shrapnel in my body right during the time we was in a fight in Würzburg, Germany, but it wasn't serious enough. I never even turned it into the medics. And when I was discharged in medical, I had a Navy doctor. I was telling him about it one day. He said, "Well, let's take a look at it." We had some kind of a fluoroscope, and he looked at my arm, and he counted 9 pieces in his arm and 1 in my stomach. But he says they're all located in such a way we do more damage trying to take them out than leave them in there. And I didn't pay any attention. I had to have an MRI here not too long ago. And I got an awful hot spot in my stomach. And they told me afterwards that's what caused that piece of iron in there. But I was never turned in for the Purple Heart or anything. And, well, I really didn't want it. I wasn't hurt bad enough. I'm kind of running out of things. I'll say that down on the superhighway, we run into some Germans that still had some fight in them towards the end of the war. And somewhere or another, I got the tank turned around and get off of that highway. And I got it wide open going up that Reichsbund. And the guy who was kidding me afterwards said I was going fast enough that both tracks looked like they were in round circles. I had it wide open getting out of there. I think that's the only time I really run. And of course, when the war come to an end, we had a short tour duty, guard duty, and I didn't have enough points, so I think I was being shipped back to the States to get ready to go to Japan. But out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, they dropped them 2 bombs. So when I got home, I was more or less discharged, let go. And fellows overseas that had more points than I did deserved to be home, and here I was already home. But I did re-enlist for 2 years, but I only served 1 year of it. I thought I wanted to stay in long enough so that civilian jobs would open up, and I knew what I was going to do, wanted to do. I didn't want to be a farmer, so I ended up being a blacksmith, fixing farm machinery. That served me well. I raised 5 boys and 1 girl. I lost my first wife when she was only 52 years old. My second wife was my sister-in-law for 30 years. And my wife and her husband were brother and sister. So I had known her for about 30 years. Well, we've been good for each other. But it was quite an experience, this war business. And I can understand these boys coming back from Iraq, this PTSD that wasn't around when I got out, but I had it. My wife wouldn't sleep with me for the first 2 months I was home. And I run into this Navy doctor, and he told me what was going on, and he kind of straightened me up, and I eventually got over it. And so I'm still in good health today. You think of any more questions?
No, I think you've pretty much covered everything we set out to see.
I guess I said I had 5 boys. Mm-hmm. 1 girl.
Yes, sir.
Lost 1 boy. Agent Orange. He was a Nam veteran. Got cancer from bladder cancer. That is what killed him. So we've been more or less a military family down through the years. I got an uncle that was killed in World War I. In fact, he was the first one. We have a Legion post that was named after him. And I guess that about covers my military experience.
Well, sir, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit
You
down
bet.
and talk to me.
Good deal. I guess I don't need this stuff anymore either. You got a place for it?
Yes, sir.